what we want to do now is we want to move into a little bit of an interview. Jerry, are you with us? And Marcia?
I am with you. Marcia is on another Zoom with someone else.
Okay, cool.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us, Jerry. It's great to see you.
Well, I couldn't resist when I knew Melissa was going to be here.
All right. You're a sweetheart. Thank you.
Jerry, we've known each other for over 20, I think it's over 20 years now. We've been involved with another business before, so kind of been in this industry for a bit. You've been a leader in other companies as well. For those of you who don't know, Jerry and Marcia are Ambassador Diamonds, right among the very top leaders in ASEA and also this industry as a whole. So, Jerry, maybe you could just tell us a little bit about your background. You know, what you've done, what your expertise is. 'Cause you've got some real experience not only in the industry but the health and wellness industry.
Well, I right straight out of school, I had a bunch of degrees in science and business and vocal music and a bunch of other stuff, PE. So I decided I was like 4 or 5 credits away from graduating in 5 different things because school was so easy and fun. Then I got out of school and I was smitten with an entrepreneurial bug. So I didn't know what I was going to do, but I bid on a federal contract as a brand new student, and the very first work I ever got was to win a federal contract to teach women how to work in non-traditional jobs and to come up with exercise programs to design that. I was coaching at the time. I stepped into coaching at an international level in swimming and triathlons. Had, in my best year, 17 kids at the United States Olympic trials and 3 in the top 2 in the world. At that time, got introduced to the Ironman competitions in the second year of Ironman by a US 10,000 meter runner who had tried to get through the second one. Said, man, I need some help swimming. So between my brother-in-law and I, we did about half of the Ironman triathletes up and down the West Coast, getting ready for this brand new thing, and learned a lot about the physiology of human beings. Marcia, though, came to me one day and said, you know, she was my assistant coach, and she was phenomenal, beyond anything I've ever had before. And she said, you know, if you want anything to happen between us, you need to get a job that pays more than T-shirts and cool trips for you, and $800 a month. So she led me to sort of a hospital situation where they had opened up 3 new therapy pools in the late 1970s, and nobody knew what that was. And so putting a swim coach in a therapy pool, having a very extensive background in human physiology, I started creating a bunch of different things, and really was one of the key starters of the aquatic therapy programs in the United States. Had an opportunity to go to physical therapy school at that time, ended up becoming a physical therapist, worked a whole range of different things, and got recruited to a children's hospital, a famous one over here in the States called the Shriners Hospital for Kids. And they have 26 different locations, but the one in our area, they kind of introduced me to a whole new group of human beings, the most courageous people I've ever met, the little kids at Shriners Hospital. And some of them, you just swear somehow somebody stuck them in a blender because the pieces and parts were coming out everywhere where they shouldn't. But in each and every one of these kids, no matter how severely damaged their nervous system was or their physiological systems, you could see the spark of a human being. And I've had more fun goofing off and playing tricks on the nursing staff and the doctors with these kids. And some of them, I'd just pull them around on a sheet and they could do nothing but pretty much kind of convulse when they were laughing. And we would do stuff and we'd hide underneath the counters and we'd do something and they'd pull out the drawer and it'd all fall out. And we'd laugh because we set the thing up and we'd go to another room and cause more mayhem. But I got an opportunity to take those kids to places they never would have imagined. And in my own heart, it just lit up everything I ever wanted to be as a coach. And so I got a chance to work with the sickest of the sick and the fittest of the fit, and really work on both ends of the spectrum with that. My heart was captured one day, though, when my oldest son came to me and said, "Dad, why is it you can go down and play with everyone else's kids at that hospital, and if you ever come home, there's no time for us?" You see, I was really freaked out because my dad went bankrupt when I was in college. And I thought everything about life was just work until you drop. So at the time, I was running a full physical therapy load. I built the human performance and gait analysis lab for the Shrine Hospital, and I was a head research therapist for that. I was also coaching multiple swim teams at the same time. I was commuting on a bicycle over 70 miles a day between them. I was teaching 3 classes at the university in biomechanics, physiology, and neuroanatomy for pre-medical students and the physical therapy students, and building a 3,000 square foot log house by hand on weekends and evenings and looking for something to do. I was basically bored with a lot of things that happened in life, and I got an opportunity to step into this thing with Bart called network marketing with another company. And we rode that thing as long and as hard as we could. It was about life in miniature. It was making people aware of who they could become, and it was a really good thing while it lasted. But it sort of, the wheels came off the wagon, and I got back to that desperate state again where we were not making enough money to, in fact, to just go across town to do a presentation for one of my friends. I had to borrow $10 to fill up the gas tank.
You know, Jerry, just on that note, you know, you were a leader in that other company. It's interesting. Some companies, they hit a certain level of success and they can kind of move the goalposts, change the compensation plan. I know that that company had good products, but you went from a place to where you were really struggling, like you said. So, I mean, it really is about the whole, dream, struggle, victory. You were passionate, but you were literally just couldn't make that work. And so,
yeah, there was a lot of devotion that we had in our heart to the people we started, but that can only go so far when you're starving your family to death. And I did get a chance to live for 17 years as a full-time network marketer through that. And Denny Robinson was one of the people that I was actually one of my distributors that I personally sponsored into that company. She kind of faded away a few years into it, was picked up by Trish Schwinkler. You probably have all heard these names. And they went down to ASEA about 3.5 years, maybe 4 years before we even heard of it. Well, not really, truly. Honestly, the first day they came out of that office, they called me and said, "You're the science guy. Is this thing even possible? These people are talking stuff that's out of my head. I can't even get this." So I began to start to look and read and develop it. It was a little bit of an antagonist to what I was already doing. So I thought, go away, don't call me anymore, you're driving me nuts. I've got this thing that's sinking and I'm bailing as fast as I can, and I can't take any time to look at something else. But it just kept kind of, I had the product sitting in the floor in my closet, and I would sip some every now and then. I go down, and I've been swimming for now 56 years competitively, and I know exactly how long it takes me to get from the 100 yards in the pool or 100 meters. And I knew how many I could do, and I knew what my heart rate was. And all of a sudden I could go 4 seconds faster, which was like, what? And I was doing it with less heart rate. So Marcia didn't know, I thought, that I had this stuff in the closet. She knew that when Denny would call, I would say, "Listen, don't ever call me again. If you call me, I'm going to turn your garbage can upside down and your dog's going to be pregnant. I'm going to do whatever I can to make your life miserable."
You're a positive ASEA drinker. That's pretty funny.
She had left me with a case of this, and I kept sneaking it because I could go fast, and I was going, And Marcia now tells me she knew it was in the closet all the time. It drove her nuts, and she had to move it all the time. And she said, "I just wish you'd learn how to make decisions." We kept, for 3 years, we tried to hang on. And in fact, in those 3 years, I was the #1 business builder in that company, and still going, there's a hole in the bucket. So finally, poverty and my daughter's health led us to ASEA, because she was going off to college, and she ended up with 3 different disorders at the same time. One of them, popularly called the kissing disease, she didn't have enough energy to fold a piece of paper because of that. But then she had one that just inflames your throat, and the whole thing, you can't hardly swallow. And at the very same time, she also had her sinuses blow up on her. She had to call a friend to blink her eyes. It was unbelievable. It looked like someone dropped her out of a helicopter, and she went splat on the couch, and she could not move from there. Well, it was going to be 3 days for her to kind of gather herself with all of that and get off to college. She was going to be 1,200 miles away and trying to start this life, and there was nothing. There was no sign of life. So Marcia said, look, I don't care that Danny's doing something in another company. I don't care that you're hanging on to this stuff. We got to get Katie May off to school. So she started saying, what can we do? And started drinking that. Within a day, she was up, and she actually walked from the bed there, or the couch, to the mailbox in our front yard and back. It was such a big day that we had people lining both sides like it was the end of a marathon. Go, Katie, go. And by the next day, it was like she was 80% back. We got her all packed up. One more day, we got in the car, went to a family reunion. By then, she's just like nothing ever happened. We're going, well, what on earth? But she thought, well, like anything else, I'm better, so let me get off of this stuff. And so she stopped taking it. And the next day, back to just face down, no pulse. So we had to load her back up again. And from that point, she cranked her motor back up in one day, and off she went. And, went through 4 years of school, and now is graduated with honors, and life turned out great. And Marcia turned to me and said, what are you thinking? So at that point, we joined. and from there, we came up with a really interesting philosophy, but that'll be a question you have. But literally for me, I took 3.5 years of studying the technology. 3.5 years of getting to know Gary Samuelson, flying back and forth to try to get Danny to just quit annoying me. And yet it was absolutely the most fascinating thing I'd ever seen. It actually shook my world. And so I was loaded for bear when we hit the ground and ready to go.
So, in a way, we've got kind of a little bit of a similar story, because I was a little stubborn at the beginning too, because, when you've got an income and you have sort of an identity that's kind of wrapped up into what you're already doing. So what was the defining moment? And you kind of shared with us a little bit. Obviously, you recognize the health benefits, but, obviously you had a chance to meet Bertus and Dr. Gary Samuelson. That must have really been eating at you, and as well as seeing the success of the other people who had kind of blazed the trail, Danny and so forth. So, tell us about the decision that you made.
The defining moment in my life, and I think this is good for all of us to learn, and I think it happens a lot more commonly than many would think. Whenever we do an event, and whenever we get to the point of asking people questions, wouldn't you know it, there's kind of two universal answers. The wife will always say, you know what, Bob doesn't even know we have this account over here. I need 3 of those, 2 of those, and I'm in. What do you suppose the man always says? I have to ask my wife. So I was one of those. Unfortunately, as a good friend we used to have would say, I'd have to wake up every morning and figure out which person in the family was going to zip their pants in the front and which was going to do it on the sides. So the defining moment for me was when my wife said, what are you doing? And I go, there's permission. I'm out of here. Let's do this. And so we made a clean break. I actually dropped 100% of what we were doing in that other company. The biggest things for me that drew me over, I love being on the cutting edge of science. You know that about me. I can get completely out of hand, and you have to shut the thing off because I'm going to go on for a long time. So the science was beyond anything I had ever imagined before. I like being part of something that's out there. I like to go fight the battle, be at the front line, and go for it. And I feel like life just gets boring if I don't. So that was one of the pieces. Then I saw a founder that had an absolute belief system, and very rarely in our lives do we see primary visionaries. People who see something so clearly that others can't, that are literally going to change the world. And I've had that opportunity twice. And you and I have both been around those kinds of founders. One spoke only Japanese, and when he was gone, it just took my heart away. This time I needed somebody who knew where they were going, and there wasn't going to get anybody in the way, but this guy had a lot that I could learn from. I also needed an Obi-Wan in my life so I could have a mentor. And he did some things that, and mentioned some things that just said, all right, I could fight for this system. And when I got all of that put into place, it was in permission. That was the ultimate one right there.
Wow. Well, so let's just be a little bit of a fly on the wall. I mean, obviously you're talking about Virtus and probably Tyler as well, the founders of ASEA, their integrity. You know, we all know that if you could have the best product in the world, but unless you've got a combination of some other really important things, some people with some sound business sense, and particularly with people with values and integrity, if you don't have that, you really have nothing. And so that makes all the difference in the world. So when you made that decision, I know it's interesting because we all know, you know, many of us know people that have been successful in the industry, and we've been given a gift here, I think, with ASEA. We've got something that truly is special. It's unique from every aspect, not only the products, but the company, the people. You know, you've already spoke to that a little bit, but timing and positioning where we're at. When you made the decision, what was that decision? What did you decide to do? Kind of walk us through your, you know.
That's a great point, because as we mentioned before, we were sucking on a dry pump. Things were just, there wasn't anything coming out of the hole anymore. And as a result, it was a really interesting thing, because there was enough money to slow, it's like you're bleeding out, you know, it's just over time. There wasn't enough to get ahead. There wasn't enough to move forward. And I have a really interesting slide here that if I can, well, I don't think it's in this one slide that I got pulled up, but I'll just tell you about it. At the time that we were ready to move to this company, we had been really in financial straits, so that Marcia was working 3 jobs. And I just cut it. I just walked away from what we were doing before for ethical reasons. It was just time to go. Brought Terry Latham with me. And Terry was, well, I didn't bring him with me. We were talking over the phone about how we could learn about this company, ASEA, which was climbing like crazy, and our other one was like on life support and kind of dying. And so we thought, well, let's look at some other companies and see what's going on. He looked around, he found a couple, and he wanted us to look at them and go, Trish and Denny, we both knew them. And says, they added 1,200 people or 12,000 people last year, and we lost 600. Let's look and see what's going on with all that. And it wasn't really my intent at that moment to jump, but Terry goes into the back office. He sees a few things on my website that I had just signed up to purchase so we could look and see what they're up to. And all of a sudden, I wake up the next morning. We were both on the President's Club in this other company, and it was against the rules to sign up somebody for something else who was in somebody else's downline in the other company. So I wake up and Latham's name is on this thing signed up under our distributorship. And I was going, don't do that. You're going to kill me. I don't have a backup. I don't have any money to back this thing up if we jump. And he goes, we're dying here and my people are going to leave unless we get this right. So he says, I'm in whether you are or not. So I thought for about that long and thought, you know, the combination of Terry Latham and us and this system where it's at and the science and my wife giving me permission, I'm out of here. So we put a little thing and we wrote this letter and we sent it in to the President's Club, and immediately both of us resigned and gave up all of our downlines, all the money, all of the future revenue, everything. And that's how much we believed in what we saw here.
Wow. So you, so that analogy of burning the ship is what you did. You burned the ship and you made a decision. It was no holding back. There was no, there was no tether. It was just making the decision. And isn't it interesting that it's in your moments? One of my most famous quotes that I love, my favorite quotes is from Tony Robbins. He says, it's in your moments of decision that your destiny is shaped.
Wow.
And so clearly you made a very clear decision, and then you could talk with people from conviction. So you really started with the end in mind. And my guess is you didn't make that decision to build it small. You made the decision to build it big and have passion and conviction, and went after it.
You know, it's kind of interesting at that point because I was just wondering about where life was and where we were going to go. And we had so much debt. We couldn't sell the old house that we had. It was a dinosaur. It was weird looking and it didn't fit in anybody. Every wife that walked into it goes, "No, go, get out of here, quick." So it wouldn't sell to anybody. We would have had to rebuild the thing and spend $50,000 to sell it for $20,000 less than it was worth. The balloon payment came due that very month that I dropped. So we had an increase of $1,500 a month in the rent on the house or the mortgage. And we had like all this credit card stuff that, you know, people had, and kids in school, and we had to start pulling kids out of colleges. And we were, you know, ready to sit under a tree and eat pine cones and use outdoor plumbing. And that was it. We were done. So, okay, this is when it gets fun. I'm in the battle. It's like my heart began to beat again. It was, you know, this is what we're made for. Let's crank it up. And that's when we began to put it together. And I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And under those kinds of stressful situations, some people crumble. We just didn't happen to. And the dang thing started working, and it was working because we had a team and stopped trying to do everything ourselves. So it was pretty awesome.
That's cool. I was curious too. I mean, everybody fights battles with these voices in our head, and so, you know, the driving questions or the affirmations, the decision. Maybe just talk with us. Did you have a kind of a driving question in your head, or affirmations that you used?
Good question, Bart. No wonder you're one of the big dogs. Yes, there were two things. Number one was, we knew how this industry worked. We'd made a couple $1 million in the other company, and we lived for a number of years on the freedom of residual income. And so we thought it's possible to do anything that we think is possible. We've been thinking in a rut. Particularly me, I was stuck. Marcia was trying to survive and keep the family running. And so I came up with 5 things, 5 points. It became my ethos, what I was going to drive this thing off of. And the first one was, if we had the possibility to make whatever we chose to make this look like when we were done, I wanted to live an amazing life full of adventure and gratitude to God. Because when I married my wife, it was all about adventure. She was my assistant coach. Before we ever thought we were dating, we would do everything together. We would travel the country and we would do competitions in everything. She's such a gifted natural athlete. I'd put her in the front of the canoe, we'd win. I put her on the front of a bike, we'd win. You know, she just like crush all the women competition. I'm just back there going, wow. And so we did everything you could imagine. We'd live 6 weekends in a weekend. And that's what brought us together. But then we got into this life that was, you know, give up all that. And so adventure. So number one, I want to live an amazing life full of adventure and gratitude. Be grateful that God gave us that opportunity. Number 2 was to do it with a whole bunch of people that we loved and care about, because we knew how that industry worked. And I dig it. It's such an amazing thing to be able to go almost anywhere in the world and have somebody who's there putting on a potluck because we did it. And then they can say, "Oh, no, don't stay someplace weird. We've got this really cool house over the beach." Okay, well, that doesn't suck. And so we said, we want to do it with a bunch of people that we love and care about. Number 3 was to make a much bigger difference together than we could ever make in ourselves. And that was completely self-evident with what I was able to do with this product. I can make it sing and dance and make romance in just seconds. I could make somebody go, "Shut up, that's nuts." And so that was a big deal. Number 4 was, I live and die by this. I wanted the people that I was coaching, that we were together trying to accomplish this thing, to get recognized for what they do. I came from a place where our other companies started falling down, and they would recognize people. I used to be good. 32 years ago, I sponsored someone. And they would not give any credit to the people who were currently doing the thing and paying the price. So there was this gap of the chargers, the people who are doing the work, that have got their boots on the ground, that are getting bloodied and doing the thing and being successful. And they're almost ready to get over the hill. And then and the award goes to, it's been going to that bronze statue for 52 years. Why don't you give it to the people that are doing the work? So that was a big deal for me. And number 5, and I'll repeat these again because I'm going off track. I'm in a rant right now. You got me all fired up. I was so stuck in my head that if I had any finances beyond this crazy limit I had set for myself, that somebody else had to be giving up something. I would literally get sick to my stomach if I thought I was making more than what I was allowed. And it still, to me, is a very difficult thing to say today. I don't know what money really is. I mean, I could do the deal under the tree with the pine cones. I don't know what to use it for. But my wife does. And
our ladies will always figure out how to spend it.
And she does a lot of philanthropic stuff, and she's incredibly frugal, and she does exciting things, and she makes me get out of the hole and quit working and go do amazing, adventures. And I love her for that, but she somehow needed some of that to do it. And so I couldn't get past this. In fact, in my other company, it was so messed up in my own head that I would make appointments, but wouldn't show up for them because I felt like I was already earning too much, which is crazy, but that was me. So I had to come up with number 5. I had to come up with a cure for it, because when I talked about money, it had thrown me right back in that hole again. The guilt of feeling or not worthy. So I came up with this. I said, number 5, I want to make enough money to be done with me. So that when the good or amazing or important things came along in life that really mattered, I would not stop and the potential for what we could do, because I was thinking about what I lacked. And then I knew that almost everybody around me spends 95% of their time thinking about what they lack financially or time-wise. And guess what you get when you get what you think about all day long. And so there's that really weird little wall. For me, once I gave it up to that and said, it's not about me. I'm done with money. It doesn't take much for me to get done with money. And I was just done with it. And it's changed everything about everything.
Yeah, boy, I tell you, there's a lot more important things that we can think about than lousy bills. But when bills are consuming our life, that's all we can think about.
Or you think about the other things that could be taken care of if you could just get it done, and waste 3 lifetimes trying to build something that you could have bought for 40 cents. The thing keeps falling apart, and you just don't have time for family or friends anymore.
I love what you said about gratitude. Obviously, you had a vision of recognizing and empowering your team. Gratitude is a big thing that you said, getting over yourself. So, obviously you've mentioned, sitting under a tree and eating pine cones. And I know that literally you were not that far from that. So life has definitely changed for you, hasn't it?
One of the things that is, Terry Latham tells me I'm not ever supposed to tell anybody in my group this, but you're not in our group, so I can tell you this. I have a Prius, and I figured out real on that the other company would kind of buy a car if you got to a certain level. So we were in the car program, and the first one that I saw that I really wanted was one where I could lay the back seat down, throw out a blow up air mattress, and maybe make a modification or two and sleep in the back. So most of the time when I was in the last few years of that business, I spent over 100 days a year sleeping in the back of that Prius doing presentations. In fact, I even would we would win a hotel room every year for the national convention, and I would give it to the up and comers in my organization, and I'd go rent a car and sleep in the back of the car. So it's just that's kind of, I'm a high class dude,
Wow. Now with we're kind of wrapping up the time, but I want to just ask you a couple quick questions before we go on. I mean, obviously, you're not sleeping in the back of your Prius anymore. You've been able to achieve some pretty significant holidays and trips, and go some places, do some things that you probably maybe hadn't even dreamed of before. Maybe just share with us really briefly, maybe how life has changed that way, and also love to hear a couple of your best product experiences. And I know that you and Marcia just came out with some pretty cool medals from some races that you just
here's one
achieved.
No, we actually got back into triathlons because sometimes you can feel like the paint's wearing off and you're getting a little creaky around the edges and stuff, and so we just said let's go, and we were. It's funny, you see all of the pictures of Sean Burke, and who is a sponsor to ASEA athlete, very, very good ASEA athlete, and he's got a little cadre of gals, a couple of them that follow behind him, and so they've got their picture being first place. Well, us two old people, we would win our age group in the same thing, so it was pretty cool. The other thing was what had changed. First off, there's this really amazing thing that changed everything for me by accident. When we first got into ASEA, we won a cruise, and we just came back from a cruise. This one happened to be Mediterranean, and all of the founders and their wives, and all of their families, and all of the staff and their families were on this cruise over to the Mediterranean. We had never seen anything like this. I mean, we would figure, well, Sarah, get some more blankets for the wagon train. We got to go to New York so they can put us on a plane. And they picked us up at the house, and they put us on this plane, and they even took the suitcase out of my hands, and I never saw the thing until we got there. All this stuff, and I'm going, I'm going to explode. This people doing things for me. I'm going to have so I was just like crazy because I couldn't handle that. But when I finally got onto the ship and my wife had an opportunity to be adventuring again, romance came back. And to me, romance is much bigger than Google eyes, and it has a lot to do with that's in your heart. I'm the original kind of Don Quixote type guy. Just give me some woman for whom I can lay my sword at her feet and put my coat across mud puddles, and I'm a happy camper. No matter what it takes for me, I want that for her. And so to see her eyes light up was just amazing to me. And so I began to become something of a romantic, and now I could fight from my heart and not my head anymore. It was really kind of cool. And they taught me a thing that I don't know, they were trying, they kind of probably knew what they were doing, but I call it shuffling the deck. And we all get this idea that we fit in certain places in our lives compared to the people around us. We had the ones who I respected the most from business building and from just this amazing set of founders that we have, how they built their lives and what they were and what they became, and then the staff. And every day we could say, well, I fit here at, down in here somewhere. I never won anything. I was second in the nation in the 200 breaststroke in college. And I was a 4-year All-American, but I never won. I was always second. And it was a reason for me to do that, because I would put myself in this position. Well, they did this thing that I now called shuffle the deck. It meant that we were going to do events, and in those events, there were multiple different types of things going on. So on one day, we might be doing a tour around the city, and somebody who had a lot of knowledge of history, they would be the top of the deck that day. Now, they would not normally think of that, but the founders would be rapt with attention listening to somebody who knew something about that. Wow, the deck got shuffled. Then we did another one where we went to the mountains of Wyoming, and we went to a trout ranch, and there was fly fishing. The next day there was skeet shooting. The next day we were doing rafting down whitewater rafting. And then at night there would be a campfire. And you know what? Somebody who could sing with a guitar was very different than the other people who could really wield a fly rod. And so all of a sudden it just started to really clear in my mind that said networks of people can absolutely reform themselves in moments for each task that comes along. Corporations were concrete, stuck in stone. You hire people for certain things. If the product changed, if life changed, you can't change fast enough, and you're seeing the corporations fall apart right now. The future was networks, and that light bulb went off for me when I saw that the future was networks. It also went off, and to finish off your other question, and my wife says, oh no, a new group of people for you to talk to. You'll never shut up. So you've got to deal with this. But when I was dealing with this, the product and what the product can do. Well, realize my background is a physical therapist, a physiologist, just searching ways to make every single human being have the maximum capacity that's built into them. I love it. And so when ASEA began to show its stripes, the first thing I did was I set up about 25 years ago when we knew each other, a series of tests in my laboratory to look at if we do an external application, at that time it was magnetics, we could see changes in how your body responded to challenge, balance, strength, that sort of thing. I transferred some of those tests over to what we did here, and it worked better than we had ever seen before. There was obviously some signaling that was going on in the system. Then when we peel back the onion on this, it's just astounding. So here's one of my favorites. I took a person who has a disorder that comes on with aging, and their hands begin to do this kind of stuff, and they get really stiff, and they walk with their feet just kind of can't go, and eventually they lose their speech, and there's just a lot of difficulties and problems with it. And I found that if I took a person and I'd try to get them to walk, and they usually would walk across the room with some sort of a cane or a walker or something like that, just trying to keep from falling down. But the first one I saw was a 6 foot 10 and a half tall basketball player who had this disorder. And it's a long way to fall when you're that big. And I went to this meeting, and he was, I said, I want to try something crazy, because he had the shakes and he had the whole thing. And so I said, I want you to walk down to the other end of the room. And he kind of did with a cane. He was reasonably smooth, but I could recognize that he had a lot of neurologic stuff going on. And I said, I'm going to try something weird. I'm going to take this and I'm going to apply it to his ankles. Now, there's a reason I did that. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to apply it to his low back and the back of his neck. I have since come to realize I didn't need to do all that fancy stuff, but I said, I want you to walk again. And he walked with much more confidence. And so I said, could you put the chain to and everybody's watching, right? Mm-hmm. So could you put the cane aside? So he put the cane aside. And he started walking forward with confidence. But when he got to the corner, well, no, he was wobbly. I haven't given him any ASEA or anything yet. So he was wobbly and he could barely kind of get there. But when he got to the corner, it was supposed to be just turn around and come back. He did this very strange thing. He started, and it took him like 15 steps, and then he fell over. He could not turn around. And I've since come to realize in that condition, it's a feedback mechanism, and they all have real struggles with that. So then I applied the Renew to ankles, back, and neck. And not only did he walk without the cane, when he got to the end, it took him 3 steps to turn around and come back. And then it took him 2 steps to turn around, and then he fell to his knees and wept. Little did I know that next weekend, he was able to walk his daughter down the aisle at her wedding.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing.
Another one of my favorites is akin to just happened just a couple of days ago. I was introduced to one of the people in our group, and her brother came on, and I had talked to them the day before. The brother was quiet. He didn't do much. 2 days before. And I was trying to give a general overview of maybe the possibilities are wide open. Let's try it. She had some things and worked very well for those. And And when I called that 2 days later and talked to the brother, he had a son that died at 14 years old, a year and a half before, and there was just this cloud over him. And he couldn't think or do or participate in life. He was gone, just gone. And just drinking the ASEA in 2 days, he regained everything. He was in the conversation. He was laughing. He said, I see tomorrow. I see a hope. I see all kinds of different things I never saw before. Or another one was a neurologic system where a guy had his hand pulled up like this and his leg was stuck, and he was 10 years in that condition, bleed in the brain. And he was a chiropractor, but he couldn't practice anymore, obviously. I mean, he's only 39 years old, and he'd been 10 years since he had the stroke. And he was left with the most debilitating part of his condition was that he was unable to speak more than 4 words. They were yes, no, and when he was really irritated, he would say, "Holy cow!" That was all he had for 10 years.
Really?
And one day, somebody gave him a little bit of the ASEA, and he's just going, "Holy cow! Holy cow!" You know, get away from me. I think it was a booth at a fair, and so they sprayed it in his mouth, and he walked away to the next table. Holy cow! You people are ridiculous. And he gets to the next table, and his wife was with him. She's been dealing with this for 10 years. They've lost their income. They got a couple little kids. And he lifts up his left hand and he goes, "What's that?" I mean, it was crazy. All of a sudden, he got 2 new words, which was 50% more than what he'd had before. Wow. So he went to he looks around, and he's got his arm all tucked up, and nobody was at the table anymore, but the spray bottle was there. So he walks over and he grabs it in one hand and he unscrews the thing up. But, you know, down it goes. He's got to really try this stuff out. Next day, he had enough. He just called these people back up. I talked to him 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, and he talked to me 20 minutes on the phone. And then within 3 months, they reinstated him as a chiropractor in the state of Illinois.
Oh, my goodness.
So it's, you know, I've seen some stuff that'll flip your shoes off and floss between your toes, and we could go off about that for a long time. Thanks for having me. I think you guys are terrific. I can't believe a world where we get a chance to be together more than just that one time. And the leadership and what you've done, and the fact that you could, Bart, I thought you were one of the most amazing business guys I ever saw, the fastest person to get to the top of our company before. But when you chose Melissa, I knew you were somebody.
Thanks, Jerry. You're right. I definitely scored. Absolutely no question about it. Thanks for sharing those stories. I know that this beautiful lady got pretty emotional just listening to those stories, and I'm sure we all, you know, everybody on the call did if you were really listening, because we've got the power to change lives like nothing that I've ever seen before. We've been involved with good things in the past, but we truly have our hands on something special and unique. Jerry, we love your passion. We love your commitment. We really appreciate you jumping on. We need to get you out here to Australia so that we can hear you live and in person here as well. So
she's not here. Maybe January.
Very cool.
Wes, thank you so much, Jerry. I know that there may be some people on our webinar today who have known you by name but not in person. So I'm so excited that everybody has had the opportunity to meet you. I know that they'll certainly come up and introduce themselves, no doubt, when they get to see you at convention. You're absolutely amazing, and you won't be remembered just because of your ruggedly handsome good looks, the stories that you shared, and also the way you shared it. We've been truly honored and blessed to be able to have your company this morning. And I know you're superhuman with your amazing wife, so we can't wait to catch up with Marsha at convention at the Diamond Summit. And we have Ed and Rebecca on the line. I don't know if Ed wants to say a few quick words before we release you for your Friday night. So go for it, Ed, if you'd like to. And we're so honored and blessed, as I said. Thank you so much, Jerry. Congratulations to both of you on your success.
It's amazing. And
I would just go ahead, Jerry. Finish
no,
up.
you wait till Marcia tells the real story. Go ahead.
I would just add that it's always fun to listen to Jerry. Jerry and I, we're just bonded like brothers from different mothers since we met in our first company, gosh, 20 plus years ago. And I've always appreciated his insight and his knowledge, but yet his zest for understanding the technologies and making them fun to understand for those of us who don't have near the education. So thank you, Jerry. You've been a great friend and ally in the business, and appreciate you taking time to talk to our amazing Aussie group and those that are on this side of the pond. So
to the top.
so much. And listen, folks, doesn't he look like he could be a stand-in for who's the movie producer? Come on, I'm missing it. Yeah, what's his name? Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact,
absolutely.
if we're lucky, I haven't pulled this out in a long time. It used to be a lot more evident when I wore little circular glasses. But I had a name tag at our other company made up, and it was the company's event name tag. And they had these little magnetic things to stick on the back. And I went up to the front office, and I had Steven Spielberg put on it. And I had this one couple of ladies that followed me around, their husbands going, "It's not him. If it was him, they would have told us." And these ladies going, "My kid's seen all of your movies and all that stuff." Well, thank you.
Yeah.
It's fun. Notice how the three families, we get to do this for a living. The rest of you, if you want to live a boring life and sit around and watch paint dry, then do what other people do and don't do this full time. But if you want to live on let's do this. Crank it up.
Really, really appreciate it, Jerry. You're certainly welcome to stay on the call for the training portion, and if you need to jump, we certainly respect that. Thanks again for joining us.
I'm having a ball. Thank you.
Give our love to Marcia as well.
Will do. Bye-bye.
Jerry. Bye. Oh, that was so much fun. It was really exciting to hear from Jerry. And yes, I did get emotional. I was wondering if Rebecca was emotional too. So I had to step away. Those stories just got me. So thank you, Jerry.